Everyone, we wanted to take a quick moment to thank all the listeners, the viewers, and of course the patrons out there. The team here at Vectorsigma hopes that we can bring a little levity and a distraction from the weight of the real world. Time is always precious, but that has become even more obvious now. We want to say that we really do appreciate everyone out there that's spending their time with us. Welcome back, everybody, to a slightly different take on what we typically do here at Vectorsigma. Usually we're talking all about constructed. Now, we have touched on sealed before, obviously leading into EI. We've talked about it in recent weeks, actually in prep for this particular event. But this is the first time that I'm doing this. So we all talked about it internally, and we're all going to try and do a variety of recordings as we build our deck for, well, the Vectorsigma hosted release event for Titan Masters Attack. Now, there's a few things that I want to get out of the way. Yes, I am not necessarily the largest fan in the world of sealed deck. I've always preferred draft when I am forced to play limited. I prefer constructed for a variety of reasons. That being said, there's a lot of fun to be had in these limited formats, and on top of it, I've always enjoyed specifically the sealed events for releases because it's fun to get the new cards. It's fun to smash the new cards against other new cards and just kind of see what happens because it's very much a Wild West format, on top of the fact that in general, this particular game you don't get very many opportunities to play limited. So you could grind tons and tons of games of constructed and still be a neophyte when you walk into a room that is playing limited. So we're going to try and, well, build a sealed deck out of this pool. Now you will see on the screen, specifically, wrong way, over there, down towards the bottom, trying to point at it, the sealed pool that I was assigned is sealed pool number 8. I believe Scott is going to make all that public, but it's certainly going to be available to all of the other competitors. So that is a little bit different from the norm where you are going to, in advance, know what bombs may be lurking in your opponent's battle deck, or you can, grimace and grumble and moan about how they opened a particular super rare character. However, I know that was kind of the theme surrounding Siege 1 and Siege 2, and it was more than a little bit of a misnomer. Now, for this particular format, a lot of things have changed compared to that sealed format. And yes, believe it or not, sealed deck tournaments have formats. And by formats, I'm really trying to say metas. So certain sets will lend themselves to slower strategies or quicker strategies, or even, I don't want to say combo, but more synergy-based focused things. Now, this particular set in Titan Masters Attack seems to have a much higher battle deck strength than the previous ones, whereas before it was often you're struggling to I guess I have to include this just so I have cards 22, 23, 24, and 25. Here, you're probably cutting cards out that would ordinarily be playable, or, it's acceptable and you're not embarrassed to run these cards within your 25 card deck. Now, I typically build sealed decks, and this is a habit from other games, by going through assessing what I have, trying to get a rough feel, okay, does this push me in any particular direction or another? And then immediately start cutting all of the quite literally unplayables, as in things that well, the word is self-explanatory. So Arcamian Toughness here, our all-out attack, our Science Officer, our Weapons Cache, yeah, they can go in this blind spot over here due to glare, because as you can tell, we have none of those characters. Now, speaking of characters, this particular pool does seem pretty strong to me from a character perspective. And we'll talk about the battle deck in a second. But you have 2 heads that showed up. You have 2 Titan Masters that show up, as well as a very acceptable character in Crankcase. I would even venture to say that he's more than acceptable. Additionally, you have Brawn, who, given the randomized nature of your deck, it's not unlikely to hit high Pierce numbers. Now, Scott and I talked about Wingspan. I kind of like him, but For the stars to stat ratio, which is really what we're going to be looking at in a lot of the cases, he's not really cutting it. So I felt comfortable letting Wingspan ride the pine for now. Now, Brawn is going to be another piece where it gets a little challenging. So we look at our heads. We have a 1-star head in Kreb and a 2-star head in Autobot Stylor. Obviously, we can mix and match these. Doesn't have to be any particular faction, anything like that. I think we're likely going to, I mean, let's face it. Everybody, before I even started talking, everybody saw Horrible and Kreb, and they're like, okay, that's it. So I think we'll do the obvious there. Again, just like the auto cuts due to unplayability, I think the auto includes. We're presumably, I haven't even looked at the cards yet, and presumably we're going to have enough black pips to support Horrible, or at least justify it. At the very least, he's going to get punched, and we'll get some flips in here or there. So he's clearly there. It's going to cost us 7 stars there. Now, ideally, from a stat perspective, and this is why I wanted to come back to it, I wrote about this, and Scott had actually written the outline for it. So although the article that's now up on vectorsigma.info was written by me, really it was pulling and collating and rewording a lot of Scott's notes. He is significantly better at, well, the game than me, but especially sealed. In this particular case, when we're talking about stats and Scott's notes, we're talking about hit points, then attack, then defense. I think everybody can recognize that there's a lot of black pips in this set. There's a lot of playable black pips in this set. It's also difficult to ensure that you're hitting enough blues because a lot of the blue cards, you know, leave something to be desired. So as a result, I don't anticipate, at least at this time, that we're going to be seeing a whole lot of quote-unquote blue decks in sealed. So that's why, because of the pierce from the black pips and other cards, that you're going to get in for a few damage here, get in for a few damage there, and it's going to be guaranteed. So having just a lot of HP will probably help you carry the day. So in this particular case, I mean, we're stuck with the heads we have. We could always wish for better ones, but I'm comfortable with these. I'm thinking we're probably going to do something like this, where it's 7, and then 9, and then 7. Now that leaves us a few extra stars over, because as you can tell, it's 7, 14, 21, 22, 23. Unfortunately, we didn't quite hit the heads to fill it out. There aren't really, I mean, there are star cards in the set, but we're talking about the Lucky Dodges of the world, which maybe we'll end up playing that anyway, but this particular pool doesn't leave a lot of room for that. So you could, of course, try and go with something different. This is 11 health, this is 11 health. I think everybody's going to agree that we're going to want Horrible over Wingspan. Even if and again, we have the 2-star to play around with. Here, yeah, you have 1 extra health. This will be 3 defense, which I know we were talking about defense being the least of the 3 stats. It's still relevant. I mean, are you really going to argue with Crankcase? The bigger issue is trying to let Brawn ride the pine, but then it requires some really weird configuration, or you're giving up like a gazillion stars, which seems silly. So we're probably going to let Brawn also go to the sideline for now. So if we assume that this is our character build, and I know for many people that's not typically how they start. They like to look at the battle deck. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a Transformers guy. I like getting this settled and that defining the battle deck. Obviously, the battle deck could define the other way. It was just my initial reaction, and that's something also to be discussed afterwards. So we're just going to shift these guys over here so that you can kind of see what's going on. Obviously, we got Horrible, we got Cup, we got our Kreb. Now, obviously, it wasn't quite foreshadowing because Stylor didn't make it into a sleeve yet. But as you'd imagine, I've had some constructed builds with a couple of these characters, we'll say. Hence why they're in those sleeves. But anyway, we're going to take a look at the battle deck. Now, again, I try to find things, that are strictly unplayable, and then things that are obviously playable, and then try and just sort things into piles. So these aren't the best examples, and I was just kind of laying them out there rather than in a more organized format. But, for example, we are clearly going to be playing Magnetic Dysfunction Ray. I think it would make the deck even without Horrible, but obviously it's going to get played now. As far as something that is absolutely unplayable, let's go all the way to the other end of the spectrum with Overrule. Let's just face it. How many white pip cards do you want to to counter, and how many of them are in limited, and how lucky are you going to be to actually play this in advance of the turn that's going to happen. I mean, maybe if they pull back mission briefing, question mark. I feel like that's going to be, if this isn't unplayable, it's pretty close, and we would probably only be using it in the Siege 1, Siege 2 fashion of we want more black pips. Now, that being said, I can't even play this with Horrible because it's going to go down as a pipless card. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably unplayable to start. Energon Mace is probably going to make the cut. It's a weapon. It's a respectable weapon. Yes, it's a blue pip. But every once in a blue moon, it's also going to provide us with some additional stats because we're either punching Autobots or punching Autobot leaders, etc. We're going to talk about Ghost Shield. Now, in this particular pool, this is where it matters what other, obviously, how the rest of the build shapes out. So we may have to circle back to this one. It's probably playable, but I can tell you right now, we have a number of armors, and I anticipate that we're probably going to play them, but we'll stick it in the middle for now for likely, but not necessarily guaranteed. Now, speaking of other armors, I intend to play both the double improvised shield because, yeah, they're pretty good. There's also another card coming up later that I'll call back to it. So Decoy Flare is another card that I'm likely to play. We talked about this on Tech Talk. I think I mentioned it in the article, but Scott certainly had it in its notes. It's another black pip for Horrible. +1 defense is fine. You're not thrilled, but it could feed our Ghost Shield. It also could randomly go, oh, well, most of your deck I've seen is actually orange as opposed to black pips. I really need this guy to live. Pop it. Every once in a blue moon, it'll do something useful for you. In a similar vein is Emergency Barricade, which, again, orange pips, black pip pumps there, but all of these feed into Ghost Shield. Now, Emergency Barricade would be difficult because you'd have to play it on somebody that's untapped and then jump through some hoops, but at least it's another armor. It's also a significant armor with that +3. Hollow Matter Projector is probably going to make the cut. This one in particular, again, +1 defense, but there's a lot of burn floating around. Horrible, although you're not likely he is, quote unquote, only an uncommon, and as a result, he could be floating around in other pools. You should expect to see him. There's Camion Crash as a common. There's a number of ways that you could be taking damage out of combat, but it's also a green, which lets us feed useless cards in our hands, such as Improvised Shield, back into the cycle. Now, we do feature a couple Autobots, so it's possible to run Emergency Repair Kit. It's, again, fine. The heal might be relevant, especially since we have Magnetic Dysfunction Ray. I think it's possible that this will end up making it. Now, we're going to switch over to, I'm trying to filter for some cards here for some things that we're going to look at some things that we definitely want to run. Now, Industrial Grade Phase Charge, again, it's a primary laser, but potentially useful. It gives you some ways to outplay your opponent where you can just pop it and go, all right, I'm getting that guy, or I'm going to make sure that I get that guy. At least gives you the option as opposed to your ordinary primary lasers. Now, speaking of primary lasers, let's talk about Sharpened Talons. Now, Scott and I actually harped on Sharpened Talons for a while on Tech Talk. I know I brought it up in the article. I think this is also very strong. Just ensuring that you have relevant plays. Now, we are looking at 4 weapons at the moment, which, and given that some of them are green, that may seem excessive, but at the same time, you want to make sure that your guys are punching harder when you can. So these all seem like they are going to end up being auto-includes. Now, along the same vein is Crystal of Power. It's another black pip. It's never going, like, we can't do the cute stuff with Sound Blaster in this pool for obvious reasons, but you could hypothetically, in some bizarre scenario, like if a head pops off and you go, oh, well, maybe they have the Camion Crash, I'll drop it on my untapped guy, so when they kill the head, it's actually an armor. Unlikely to happen, but it's another black pip that feeds Horrible. From there, we're looking at another auto-include in, speak of the devil, Camion Crash. This pool, unfortunately, only had the one, but, you take what you can get. It's definitely a solid card. It's going to win you some games. People have seen the power with Horrible. I don't think much more needs to be said. Now, other things that I think are auto-includes are Scouting Mission, another black pip, draws cards, it'll randomly KO one of your opponent's guys. We've harped on this at length. I like Mission Briefing because one of the things and one of the pitfalls with sealed and limited in general is people running out of gas. So it's entirely possible that you end up playing a whole bunch of cards because it's like, oh, I need to maximize my turn. I need to maximize my turn. And then 1, 2, 3 turns into the game, you go, whoops, I'm out of cards. Or all the cards in my hand are the aforementioned improvised shields or other jank. It's the 24th, 25th card where it's, yeah, I kind of just need this for the pip. Of course that's the card you draw because that's what always happens. But again, green pip for consistency, white pips allow you to go find. So for example, it's unlikely that we're going to attack with a powered up crankcase, get in, and flip double orange to get in for 10, 12 with, or 13 hypothetically with a weapon. Unlikely. But you can make up for those missed orange pips because you flip a black pip, you flipped a blue pip, you flip whatever, you flip a white pip into your improvised shield. So the white pip is definitely going to help out. I know that is obvious to everyone. I think it bears repeating given that it functions both in the pip role as well as in the actual card text role. And it's likely that we're going to have crankcase in this mode and horrible in this mode at some point. Now I'll come back to the flips when we finish the battle cards. So beyond there, we do have some other double pips. Now, I think I'm likely to include these, although I mentioned earlier and Scott has talked about, and a number of other people have talked about the drawbacks of having blue pips in the corner in sealed. But these are double blues. And again, like we talked about, we don't have a ton of white pips, but flipping a double blue here or there can make a significant difference. So you might turn a combat that way. If you randomly flip both double blues, it's like, okay, I hope you have black pips because otherwise I'm probably taking 0. So I think these are likely to make the cut. Similarly, we have Hold the Line, which is probably more kind of in between. This one, because we're a little all over the place with the pips by nature of limited, it's a heal one. You might be able to just hose somebody with a head getting in, but a lot of the time, I mean, somebody's probably going to attack for 7, and you're going to defend 2, and they're a 7-star guy, so you're probably not actually using the effect. It's really just, okay, I'd rather have this in hand than the improvised shield kind of thing, or a handheld blaster for that matter. Now, speaking of the double pips, especially the improvised shields in particular, lock on target. Now, while we don't sport any planes, I think this is worth running because it's a bold 4. Ensure as best you can that your attack does something of value. It's going to allow you to actually dig for those double pips, maybe hit a white pip, go get some other stuff, try and actually get there. I think it's worth including for that reason. So from there, we're going to move to our double brass knuckles. There are a lot of doubles in this, but I kind of expect that given that we're 6 packs of a single set. Now, again, this isn't guaranteed. This isn't the same as playing a weapon, but it's going to randomly try and turn a combat on either side, obviously more so as the card text. So it's useful to include these. I think those are definitely going to make the cut. Now, we're kind of getting down there. I'm going to say that these triple temporal quagmires are not going to get it done. Similarly, these hull downs. Now, I did have a thought about the hull downs because if you look, we currently have two double blues, a possible blue. This will never be blue, obviously. And those are it for our quote-unquote borderline cards. Some blues and brass knuckles, scouting mission, Energon Mace. We still haven't gone through all the cards. We have characters that this cup's going to have 3 defense. We have 2 defense here, 2 defense here. Yes, they flip to modes where there's only 1 defense. But point being is that there are a number of cards that end up sporting blue pips. And as a result, the hold down may end up, it's not quite unplayable. I'm leaning towards cutting it. So it's almost here, I want to say. Problem is that it's a blank pip, and I just don't want to include too many blank pips. We'll have to see where we end up. Now, we do have a couple other black pips that we do, at this stage, we don't actually have. We have 1 black pip here, we have 1, and then we have 2, we have 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 black pips. Not really the quantity you want. Now, this is a card that is tough and limited because until you've seen your opponent's deck, this is like a game 2, game 3 card, or if you know, oh, I'll get blown out by end hostilities because I have brass knuckles and something else, I guess. But I kind of just want it here so that you can also potentially strip things out of your opponent's hand. There are going to be green cards. You know, they attack, they flip sharpened talons. Okay, I'll take that back. All right, I'll counter espionage that and ping you with horrible. We kind of need more black pips to ensure that he's actually doing what he needs to do. So, speaking of black pips, we're going to talk about Headbutt. Now, this is a card that I had high hopes for coming into the set, and then this whole tapping things theme only showed up on this and Tripwire. I think that's it. So Headbutt's going to allow you to do something unique. Unfortunately, it forces you to expose one of these guys. Now, that may be fine because, for example, Cup, again, has 3 defense and tough 1 innately. While he doesn't have all that much health, we are running a lot of blues. Maybe it's possible you can Headbutt their really good Titan Master that is somehow only 10 stars. I mean, you're at 9 here already, so you're not exactly getting that far ahead, but say it's a Fangry that you want to lock down. Maybe that's an option. A Fangry with, I wouldn't go so far as to say Clobber, but maybe they picked up Parsec or some other reasonable aggressive head. We do also need, again, black pips, so it gives you an option. Worst comes to worst, we do have a ton of greens, like we have, as we already discussed, the double sharpened talons. We have the Hollow Matter Projector, we have Hold the Line, we have Counter Espionage. The latter two aren't exactly things to be writing home about, but it gives you options that you could feed that card in if you need to recur things. Now, speaking of green pips, we'll talk about triangulators. I think these could be really good. The reason I say that is obviously you can filter on either end of combat for the double pips that you wanted. I think that's worth including them for. It's just tough. We're going to have to see how many cards we come out to at that point. Last Stand is, and I know I'm making more piles than the original 3 that I had originally wanted. Said that too many times. Last Stand is something that could obviously be intensely powerful. It could be really good with one of Titan Masters. +5 is a lot. It's a black card. I don't know how much I want to be killing my own guys outright. There's a big difference between this and Reckless Charge. And it's not the 5 and the 4 or the pip. It's the fact that your guy could live and force them to sink another attack in. This is, I'm doing your work for you. Maybe it's a necessary evil. Now, we unfortunately don't have a whole lot of black pips to really make Concealing Contrails all that great. Again, we don't have planes. It could be a black pip. I'm going to say it's all the way here on the end for now. Lucky Dodge we could probably include ultimately because we have the stars to spare. Maybe we'll get lucky. No pun intended there. Now, versatility. Okay, so we do have 2 multi-pips so far. 3, 4, 5. 5 multi-pips in a 25-card deck. Not really fantastic odds, great odds. Because you could heal. I don't know. I don't like this initially. I apologize for the pause. I'm legitimately considering where this is going to end up. I think we can reasonably expect this to be a medic. And then once in a while... So here's the combo, the synergy would be these. We're obviously never going to get to play our bold 4. But I think flipping 4 cards, like we could reasonably heal somebody up. So I think versatility makes the cut. So if we assume that our Temporal Quagmires, Overrule, and Concealing Contrails are actually in the unplayable pile, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 here. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And again, that may not make it. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So we'd have to cut 6 cards. We can probably safely cut the hull downs, and I'm not sure about that. The next step is going to be trying to actually talk pips. So we're going to leave these over here for now. So black pip, orange pip. These are going to be included in the blank category. Blue, blue, blue. Oranges. Put those there for now. Your blank pip. Put that there for now. Black pip, black pip. Blue, black pip, blanks, black pip, black pip. This is really, I'm counting as a black pip because I want to double check the options for horrible. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blue cards, not actually that many oranges. Our offense is severely lacking here. So we're definitely going to need to make sure that all our weapons make it. Probably the triangulators to help dig for things. We do have burn to help dig us out, but I need to get a sip of water there. Crankcase is going to have to do the heavy lifting on the offensive end of things, and to a lesser extent, horrible. Obviously, Cup is, I mean, he flips into a 4, and those blue cards could randomly turn into removal for us, which is nice. I don't know how much that's going to matter. Obviously, weapons are going to stick around longer because people will actually, or are likely to untap. So if we needed to cut 6, we'll move this over here to count as a black pip. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 really, sort of 8. Last Stand is on the bubble, I think. Armor, we have, let's see, we have 1 armor. These compete for utility slots, although these can obviously go on a single character. So armor, because we're talking about this ghost shield here and whether we're actually going to try and utilize it. There's a fair amount of, if not outright removal, irritating things. So for example, gears, I believe it is, can bounce them, so that would screw with our ghost shield. We have another armor here. We might be able to cut the hollow matter projector, although there's a lot of burn. I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to be there. Oh yeah, this is an armor. Healing Cup would be cute. We only have one way to activate his actual ability. So I think we're going to... Like, I'd like to include the emergency repair patch, but I'm not sure that that's worth it. So we only cut 3. We need to hit 3 more on here. Not all these cards are visible on screen, so I apologize. Maybe the Ghost Shield. I feel like Ghost Shield on any of these guys makes them live forever. Because, well, yes, there's pierce damage. You still have to get there. And if you're piercing 1 or 2, that's still a lot of damage you have to do. I don't think we can cut this as much as I would like to get rid of lock on target. Maybe we don't need the handheld blasters. Because I think these are definitely in. I think mission briefing's in. Hold the line. Do we care that much? Because for all the reasons I already stated, I don't know that it's going to do a whole lot other than heal 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Is that right? Let's make sure that I didn't miscount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we could put 1 back in. Now, here's the other piece to consider. So we don't end up like one of my recent constructed decks where it's like, oh, I have verging on 30 of 1 card type and none of the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. A little skewed, but that leaves, these stay. This is a utility slot and stays. These will probably fall off. These are never actually getting played, ideally. And of the cards we were considering including, and we'll even look at our quote-unquote unplayables from earlier, we could look at these and these, I think. I still don't think we have enough black pips, and we don't really have enough, or any, I mean, we have the tough on cup, but I haven't run the numbers to see how likely we are to hit a black pip. I'd have to actually sit down and do that. I can't do that in my head. So, let's see. I don't think we want more blanks with that. We'd include Ghost Shield. That would up the orange count. It would give us something to do with these other armors. Or it could be one of these to help level out what we're doing. We have 2 greens among the actions, which means we can, guarantee a play. We're pretty much always going to have an upgrade play because we have double talons, we have the triangulators. So I think at this stage for our last card, like, I really want to include that Ghost Shield because I think if we ever stick the Ghost Shield, it's going to be spectacular. But that makes me want to include one of these two as well. I think Hollow Matter could probably go to the board in the event that, oh, that pool has triple Cayman Crash or something like that. So we should be up to 26. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Wait, not these. Counting the wrong cards. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I must have miscounted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Card was stuck under another one. So I really don't like Lucky Dodge. We don't have any way to abuse it with Spy Master's Ruse, although I guess that wouldn't really matter. It's just, it sits out there for a chance at something. I think we cut the dodge. It lowers our action count, which is unfortunate. Let's see if there's any upgrades that we're comfortable cutting. I think if we're going to run a triangulator, we run both. We could make an argument for cutting the handheld blasters. I think that would potentially be reasonable. You cut one of the armors we just added, but I don't really want to do that. This really feels like the weakest one other than Headbutt, but I think we need that for a scenario where it's like expose your Headmaster with Cup, ping it, get in with Horrible and or Crankcase, depending on how the wheel lines up. I think you could really screw with somebody with Headbutt. I'm hoping. Anyway. What do we do here? I think it's probably Lucky Dodge. I just think I don't like this card. I know we're leaving stars on the ground. And again, we are now heavily skewed because we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 actions. Oof. That is unfortunate. We're going to be slamming an upgrade every turn and then hoping. There's an argument to be made then that Hold the Line maybe comes back in, that sort of thing, just to help level it out. But I mean, I don't really want to play Temporal Quagmire. I don't want to play Overrule. Hold Down again, maybe. I guess if I could board it in if I feel like I'm just getting beat up left and right. Hold the line, again, we could see coming in, concealing contrails is reasonable. I wish that I could announce it as a black pip, but you can't do that for horrible triggers simply. But I think this is probably what I'm going to register. At the time of this recording, there's still time left, so I may mull it over, but I think this is likely what's going to end up in my 25, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate everybody for watching, coming out. I hope this was illuminating. I hope it was entertaining. I know I didn't do any wacky voices or put up funny graphics on the screen because, you know, I just wanted to get this cranked out. So I think that'll do it for this one, everybody. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe and healthy, and Black Lives Matter.